pilots stay fresh up in this cockpit.
The clappers. Someone else.
Everybody, bro. Everybody always asks me why I be clapping.
You told my girl what that was, and she's a fucking actor that's been on TV before.
You know I got mad bars, bro. Everybody can get
funny. I think it's just funny that she's such a know-it-all, bro. She's so smart. She knows everything, like everything. So it's just, and it's not again nothing against you. It's just you made everything yourself. Where her, she went to acting school. She did this. Like she's been on professional sets. You know what I mean? Like, and you put her onto the game. Like,
Yeah, that's one of my favorite clips when she's like, "Oh, so that's what that was," and then we just started laughing.
You like of all people,
mad random, right?
You of all people to not know that.
Word, like that's your fucking Matt Forte.
That's what I'm trying to say. Shit was frustrating for me.
Oh man. I mean, I started recording this. You want me to leave it or exit out?
I mean, it don't matter. You just can't let Poland Spring get any money.
Yo, word. Let's pay up, son.
Yo, so Levitard, they're free agents right now.
Uh-huh.
So they're like talking to a bunch of different companies or whatever.
By the way, terrible podcasting 101. Just ripping off labels and squeezing bottles. Yo, pay up, bitch.
He's been a free agent, and so they're experimenting. They're doing a little bit of ad reads now. They're getting some money, but nonetheless, one day they tried to like incorporate brand ad placements, like product placements into the show, the live stream. They're doing Twitch now. Mm. So they did like this thing where you have to go into a can of Pringles and you pull out like a topic and then you talk about it or whatever. And Pringles was the sponsor, but no one knew about it. They're like, yo, Pringles fucking suck. And they were just like shit talking their sponsor on the air. It's hilarious. That's also how Levitard is though. So.
Yeah, that's his brand. That's also your guy. Yo, you know I met him one time in South Beach?
At Starbucks, right?
At a Starbucks. Yo, he's big, dude.
Yeah, he's big.
He's like
6'4".
6'3", 6'4", fucking brick house.
And husky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The barista was like, "Oh, Dan, what's up, baby?" And then he just like I was literally like right behind him. And then I was just like, "Oh shit, Dan Levitard." I lied. I was like, "I listen to you every day, man. Big fan." He's like, "Oh, thanks, buddy." And that was it.
I'm sure he appreciated that, the quick encounter. Dan, there's a podcast that you need to listen to where he interviewed John Skipper. Do you know who John Skipper is?
Yeah, the former ESPN, the head honcho, right?
Probably one of the most successful presidents in ESPN history. Started as like, he started heading up. He came from the Rolling Stone magazine. So John Skipper initially was in charge of ESPN, the magazine, when they first rolled it out. Huge hit. Dan Levitard was probably one of the first writers for ESPN, the magazine. Nonetheless, John Skipper rose all the way through the ranks from being just the president of ESPN, the magazine, all the way up to ESPN as a whole. Nonetheless, Dan Levitard interviews him for like 4 hours. It's broken up into 4 different episodes, and he just talks to him about everything. All his time at ESPN, his time at Rolling Stone, the endeavor that they're taking on now. It's an amazing podcast, and it's like 4 episodes. You'd really like it.
Bro, if you take off your jacket, you're super South Beach right now. With the chest hair going, the V-cuts, let's go. My guy's getting ready. He's been in the gym too, clanging and banging, baby.
I was going to do it, I'm on like work meetings and work calls like this, just like I don't give a fuck.
Dude, how you holding up, man? I haven't seen you in a while.
I'm good. Tough. Working from home, bro, is brutal. Like, it's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm blessed to have a job. I'm super happy about it. But at the same time, I work in my bedroom. I wake up, I go to work. I'm in the same room all day. Don't get me wrong. I go to, I sit in the living room. And
Right. But the concept is the same where you're at fucking home all the time.
Yeah. And so the one thing I will say is, like, growing up, you go to people's houses, they have like an office in their house. Like, why did you waste a room on an office? Like, I don't get it. Until you have to work from home and you're like, shit, yo, if I had an office, I would love this. So shouts to people that put offices in their house. I don't know.
Nah, you're right. Perspective is everything. Mm-hmm. Dude, it's the same thing with this setup that I have here.
You're absolutely right. You feel like you're not sleeping in the room that you're working
in. And on purpose, I leave that door closed when I don't got to be in here. So it's like I could keep business and pleasure away from like relaxing in my crib.
Yeah.
That's why I was going crazy, bro, when I was living at home during COVID, because I've told the story all the time, but I'm working out, recording, editing, sleeping, shitting, like everything. I'm doing that shit at home. Couldn't even go to the gym for 2 hours to work out because the gyms were all closed. So my only escape was I picked up running during quarantine even more because like I've always been a runner. I hate running on a treadmill, but I love like...
Yeah, it's boring. Treadmills are boring.
And I get runner's high, bro, where like... Yeah. Today I was going to go running, but I hopped on a call with my pops, and we ended up talking for like a half hour. And then before you know it, it's like 3:45. We were gonna link up at 5. So I'm like, man, my run's usually like, I like run around all of Astoria and shit. And I'll wake up and just bang out like 12 miles,
That's
like
crazy.
straight through. With in my mind, I'm just like, I put a roadmap together in my head, and I was like, yo, I'll just do it. And I don't care how long it takes. Like, I just need to hit certain landmarks.
Got it.
And I was like, I can't do that because that's like a 2-hour run right now, and I'm gonna link up with Impy. And the last thing I want to do is like speed through a workout. I hate doing that. So just like, circuit boys. I usually do circuits on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and then on Saturdays always with Johnny Pretzels.
Nice.
We'll be over there doing some circuits.
He's a house.
Yeah, man.
He's a house.
Shouts to John. He says that he listens to the pod. He got me super fucking horned up the other day. He's like, yo, bro, I listen to your show all the time. I'm like, no, dude, that's like that's better than calling me hot, bro. Like, that's my favorite thing you can tell me.
It's an amazing. You feel good about that.
Yeah, especially when it's your homies that listen and shit.
Yeah.
So I decided not to go on a run today. Probably gonna go on a run tomorrow.
Let's get it.
But yeah, man, going back to that, dude, like I never was fucking leaving. I was like, fuck, yo, it's draining out my energy and my creativity. So that's why when I moved out, I was just like, yes. And, without giving away too much, everything that I thought the studio was going to do is doing exactly that and some. So
It looks amazing here. So I've said that last time I was here.
yeah. But I switched it up a little bit. I made one side all one color, the other side all one color, just because it just hits a little bit different and it just looks a lot cleaner and sharper.
Facts. So we can talk about sports or what?
Yeah, man, I'm just happy to see you though, bro, because I've also mentioned this in passing too, how like I feel like one of my favorite days, and maybe quarantine had to play a role in it, was when you came over for that random like Bills Steelers game.
It was a Thursday night game or a Sunday night game?
I think it might have been like a Tuesday game. Like it was one of those random.
It was a postponement game.
Right. It might have even been. You know what? Actually, now I remember. It was when the Steelers lost to the Washington. It was the doubleheader Monday. And the reason why I bring that up is because I felt like my relationship with all my friends was becoming like, yo, come on the pod. That's the only time that I could see them. And like we just hung out. We didn't even step into this room.
Feels good.
And it was just like, yo, that's what it should be about, bro. And we've been trying to set this up, and we were chopping it up about an hour beforehand. But
so we don't have to talk about sports.
but, we are gonna chop it up about a lot of things. But I know that first and foremost, on a serious note,
Yeah.
when are you thinking of apologizing to me? Today,
Knicks?
moving forward? I told you on these fucking airways, yo, bro, 12 to 1 to make the playoffs. They have the play-in game between 7 to 10, so like they can't finish top 10 in the East, and then anything can happen there. Just
They're the 7th seed right now.
I know. I've been fucking watching. This is the most NBA I've watched in a long time because I don't got cable, so I got League Pass. And then I also got like the Knicks stuff too with
Knicks
the
suck,
MSG.
though. It's like impossible to find them on TV. But
Yeah. So when are you thinking of apologizing? Now, later, next week? You want to wait after All-Star break?
It's funny because I came on the show and I praised everything they did in the offseason. And then when it came to, when push came to shove and it was time to make a pick on over or under, I went under just because every year I say over and it's never the over. However, this was the year I literally praised everything they did. It's just so crazy. And I was on the show talking about Emmanuel Quickly, and I think you laughed at me. And Emmanuel Quickly is probably like, he's cooled off a little bit lately, but there was a time over the past couple weeks where he was like in the discussion for Rookie of the Year.
Easily Knicks Twitter's #1 draft pick for when he starts going wild, they fucking explode.
It's because there's a funny graphic, CBS Sports.
The D-, right? Or D+?
They give him a D+ draft grade. Keep in mind, the kid was supposed to be, he was ranked like 40th. He was like a 40th ranked in the NBA draft. He went roughly 25, and it seems to be going pretty well.
Well, according to who, though? It's my biggest gripe with all draft grades. I think it's the dumbest thing that we have to do in sports media because, number one, no one knows anything. You look at the history of draft grades and shit, like, a lot of them are wrong. Some are right, yeah, but you just can't tell right away, dude.
Yep.
There are some where you're like, I don't know about that. Like when Anthony Bennett went #1. That was the first time I ever saw like Jay Billis be like, yeah, fam, I don't know what the hell that was.
Down year.
Right. But for the most part, it's the one topic that I hate discussing because you just don't know, bro.
And it's funny that we're on the topic of the Knicks because like I think Julius Randle is a good example of that. Julius Randle made his first All-Star game at 26 years old. he's not young, but he's not old either. You know what I mean? He's been in the league. I want to say
he's technically entering his prime now.
Exactly.
26 to 32-ish.
But you want to crucify a kid because he's not a star in his first 3 seasons. These kids are getting drafted at 18 years old. Like, sometimes you just got to pump the brakes, especially in basketball where these kids would be getting drafted out of high school if it wasn't for the one and done rule. It's unbelievable.
I'm turning 30 in 2 weeks.
These kids, right?
No, you're right, though. Think about this. You're fucking eating ramen noodles and pizza, and then 6 months later, you're making millions of dollars, and everywhere you go, people want a piece of you.
Yep.
And you want him to act mature? Bro, if they throw me millions of dollars, I'm going to be 30.
Yeah.
I'm going to do some dumb shit. I'm going straight to Vegas. I'm blowing like $25K just for people to be like, yo, you're terrible with your money. I'll be like, DX chop. So it's one of those things where like, yo, bro, give these dudes some time.
Yeah. And going and looping it back to the Knickerbockers, it's funny because Obi Toppin, who they drafted with the 8th pick in the first round, I think he's older than R.J. Barrett, Kevin Knox, and Emmanuel Quickly, who they all drafted in the first rounds the past couple of years as well. So it's just everyone's path is a little different. You know what I mean? And so just can't crucify these kids if they're not a star or a stud early on, without a doubt. But super impressed. Tibbs, culture changer. You know, it's funny. We wanted to talk about the Wolves too. It seems like Jimmy Butler and Thibodeau did a whole bunch of yelling towards the end of that time in Minnesota.
That's aging well for them.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, everyone knew Jimmy Butler looked good last year, I would say. Like, I think Jimmy Butler got his roses last year when he took the Heat to the finals. Haha, joke's on you, Minnesota and Towns. It's all on you. You know what I mean?
Philly,
yeah, exactly. Philly too. And Tibbs was still kind of, no one really knew. Like, is his style gonna work still? It's a modern NBA. He's made some adjustments. He has a great coaching staff. They brought over Johnny Bryant from Utah, he's basically Thibodeau's first assistant coach off the bench. They brought over Kenny Payne from Kentucky. Everyone wants to make jokes as to Kentucky Knicks, but they pump out some really good talent. Anyway, Thibodeau seems to be proving everyone wrong in Minnesota. And now look, they fired their coach halfway into the season, and they already replaced him with another coach who was an assistant on Toronto, Chris Finch, and they gave him a multi-year deal. That never happens. You never fire a coach in the middle of the season and then give the job to someone else who is in another organization. And no less give him a multi-year deal. There's just dysfunction all over Minnesota.
Yeah, usually you let the guy come in like the most famous
Interim
one.
Coach.
The most famous one was like Lawrence Frank. Remember Lawrence Frank took over the Nets job and they go like 27-3, and then before you know it, they make him the head coach after. So it's very rare where you see that happen. You kind of put me onto that story because I heard about the not Flip Saunders, Ryan Saunders, the kid, and then after you told me, you're like, yo, you got to look into this shit because it's kind of weird how this all played out. And you're right. That's not something that you really see throughout the history of coaching changes.
Chris Finch, who is now the Timberwolves' new head coach, he was an assistant with Nick Nurse in Toronto. He interviewed for the Timberwolves job.
Mount Rushmore, your favorite coaches. Does he make it?
Nick Nurse.
That's your guy.
Yeah, he's a great coach.
Nah, he is. He's awesome.
Quinn Snyder's up there too. Who, by the way, the Jazz are the best team in the NBA right now.
I know. I bet them last year at plus 550 to finish the regular season in first.
Tough.
And then of course now they have a 3-game lead in the West.
So Chris Finch is an assistant under Nick Nurse. He's kind of like a Nick Nurse 2.0 in the sense of that he's coached in Europe. He coached in the G League. He's coached under Nurse's staff. He interviews for the Minnesota job in 2019. He doesn't get the job. They give the job to Ryan Saunders. Fast forward a year and a half later, 2 years later, they just give the job to Chris Finch. I bet you they didn't even interview him. Or if they did, it was like, hey, man, remember when we interviewed you and you didn't get the job? We really liked you. We gave it to Flip Saunders' son. Well, now, we want to give you the job. I bet you that process was short and sweet. They probably wanted to give him the job, but there was kind of a sentimental factor to Flip Saunders.
Flip Saunders passing away, and yeah.
So, look, how good is the Timberwolves roster? It's probably not that great, but I don't think they're worst team in the league bad. So you could look at the coach and say maybe there's an issue here.
Well, where is, I know this is putting you on the spot and this is terrible. Cat, where is he on your list of like alphas or just like best players in the league?
He seems to be, look, and I hate to do this. Like I'm I don't like to just like give like boiling hot takes. Kind of feels like he's been getting coddled a bit. Towns doesn't like Tibbs. Tibbs is gone. They bring in Towns, this guy. Year and a half later, 2 years later, now this guy's gone.
Couldn't get along with Wiggins, Butler.
Butler. Now what? Now you have to think about like Saunders was Towns' guy. There's been rumors of Towns leaving for a while, even though he's young. Is this kind of the end of Minnesota and Towns because of this Ryan Saunders fiasco? Like, it's super interesting. And one last piece, D'Angelo Russell and Towns have only played 5 games together.
That's absurd.
Did he get a fair shake? These are a lot of different things that you have to unpack and you have to consider, which I'm sure they have. Again, I think it just goes back to, is this roster worse in the NBA bad? It's not. That's where they're at, and I just think they wanted to make a change. So we'll see what happens with Towns.
Okay, let me ask you this, a follow-up to that. I've made the comparison of James Harden being the issue in Houston, which that take hasn't really aged well when Houston is, like, currently, as I have the standings in front of me, they're on an 8-game losing streak. They have
Christian Wood is hurt.
Right, they have the second worst record in the West. I think in the league they're tied with the Cavs for the third worst record in the league. So that take hasn't aged well as far as what I was saying about James Harden. Like, yo, at what point, fam, is it you?
Yeah.
Multiple head coaches. The GM did everything to build a team around you. You had Chris Paul. You had Dwight Howard. I know he wasn't Magic Dwight, but he wasn't washed yet. You have all these guys, Westbrook also. And then before you know it, you can't get along with everyone. And you force your way out, which is kind of the norm of the NBA superstar nowadays. I'm never fucking buying a jersey for anyone just because you just never know.
They have jersey insurance now.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, I swear to God.
So tell me.
NBA, if you buy a jersey off NBA.com and the player gets traded within X amount of time between purchase and this X date, you could get money back.
No way.
Money back or a credit to buy a new jersey. But absolutely, they have New Jersey insurance. There's a great commercial, actually.
That's the most AAU shit ever, bro.
It was only a matter of time.
Nah, but think about it, dude. Like, you're a Celtics fan. You get Kyrie, one of the best players in the league. You're like, yo, Kyrie, next 5 years, him and Gordon Hayward. What'd they play? 9 games together? So with Cat, at what point is it you, fam?
Yeah, no, I agree. The one thing that I will say about James Harden is...
strip clubs and dollar bills.
I've kind of backtracked on that because the more I think about, we both have talked about the series in nauseum, but the Warriors-Rockets series, where if Chris Paul gets hurt, look back at those Rockets rosters. Like, I'm starting to believe, like, I'm not as high on them as I was. Like, I mean, look, the Russ year, whatever, I'll throw that one out the window. Chris Paul, sensational. But, like, was Clint Capella that year, PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon. Like, these guys are good, don't get me wrong, but the rosters, they went toe-to-toe with the best team in the league, arguably one of the best teams of all time, took them to 7 games. Like, I just think Harden is a little...
That's the biggest pro-Harden argument that you... Basically what teams are going to be running into in the AFC in the NFL. Like, yo, you're going to be losing to the Chiefs, which is not a bad thing. Like, you could beat everyone else. You're just not going to beat the Chiefs. You're not going to beat those Curry and Golden State Warrior teams unless, like you saw, injuries, suspensions, shit like that. For the most part, you're not beating those teams 4 out of 7 times. You're just not. So
tough.
That's probably the best pro James Harden, Houston Rockets 2015, 2019 era take you could have because of that. Like, it's not a bad thing that... Bro, how many Hall of Fame top 50 players all time didn't get rings because they ran into MJ? Yeah. Utah, Barkley,
90s Knicks.
Fucking the Suns team. Well, Barkley's 90s Knicks. Like, even the Magic probably would have won rings if they didn't run into them.
I kind of just did some backtracking because James Harden's been playing out of his mind, and we'll touch on the Nets in a second, but let me just rattle off some of these guys other than Chris Paul and James Harden. Like, PJ Tucker, solid, right? Don't get me wrong. Ariza was solid, but Gerald Green, Ryan Anderson, Joe Johnson was on the last stretch of his career. Like, that roster wasn't as good as I initially thought, and so I've kind of, changing my tune on Harden. He's been playing out of his mind, leading the team in rebounds over this period of time. The Nets went on a 6-game winning streak on the West Coast. dating back to last week and going into the weekend. They beat some really good teams without KD, by the way. Kyrie's playing out of his mind. Harden's playing really well. It's tough to imagine the Nets not coming out of the East.